Right, so I thought we'd talk about the coming AI revolution and the effect it's going to have on Rachel from accounts, because I don't think it's going to be very good. Before we get to that, I should mention we've just launched a new show, Real Politique. I've watched it. It's very good. Fraz hasn't watched it, but he's in it. That's why it's good. And Carl, did we pick about the right time to launch a geopolitics show?
I mean, I think it's all over now, so maybe we don't need you now, joking.
Something will happen. And I don't want to plug my own stuff, but I will. And the reason I'm doing so is because I just put out an episode a little while back on taxation insanity, of what the Labour Party is trying to do in this country, about how it basically is trying to tax its way out of all of its problems, but it's just making all of its problems worse. And one of the graphs I shared in that episode was this. So, I mean, it's helpfully labelled when the budget was, and basically the blue lines is when you gain jobs.
Yes.
The red lines is both after the budget and huge job losses.
Yeah, I mean, you can see when the budget happened, right?
Yeah, this is catastrophic.
Like, very clearly. Even if it wasn't labelled, you'd be able to tell when the budget was.
Her clever idea was, we want more jobs in the public sector, what we do is we tax jobs in the private sector. However, the tiny flaw in that plan is that the latter pays for the former.
Yes.
Yeah.
So anyway, I put that episode out a little while ago.
But if you believe in the magic money tree, you don't have a problem.
Well, yes. Unfortunately, the magic money tree doesn't believe in them, so they've got that problem.
The thing is, you've got to remember, the plan is basically one day every single person on Earth works for the British government.
Yes.
That's genuinely
preferably the NHS.
Yeah, well, the NHS being a subsidiary of the British government.
Yes. Right?
So at some point, every single person on Earth, this is the imperial plan of the Labour Party, that every human being will be born cradle to grave, all places, all times, working for the British government.
I mean, well, it's not just them, the Tory party as well. They're both committed to above inflation gains for the NHS. So basically, I mean, mathematically, that does consume the entire universe at some point.
Yes, it does.
So anyway, that was when I did that episode. It was 7 months. We are now up to 9 months of falls in employment.
Wow!
And it's still accelerating. This is a piece referencing this bit here from
Can't believe Rachel from accounts is. Sorry,
extraordinary, isn't it? Yeah. She looked so competent.
I heard she was brilliant.
First female chancellor, so all those little girls can see somebody of their gender screw it up. Okay, so this is the report. It's referencing some from S&P Global. UK flashes, PMI signals lackluster June. I won't bother you with all the details.
If only someone could have predicted this, though.
If only someone could have predicted.
Who could have known that taxing the hell out of the private sector for the public sector was going to cause this?
I did do a few episodes on it before it happened, but
only one person on Earth, and it was Dan.
To be fair, it was quite obvious. It was a fairly easy call. Yes,
I think we're heading towards some kind of stagflation. Mild inflation and
inflation's coming off a bit. But,
well, that's because they're cramming so many people into the country, right?
Well, I mean, it won't, because they need to print money, because people are going to stop buying these bonds. I won't give you the full, blah blah from this, but key points are growth barely positive. I mean, growth is 0.1% for the last quarter.
So that's smaller than the population increase, one would assume?
100%,
yes.
Definitely.
And it's significantly smaller than the coupon we're paying on the debt, and the debt is the same size as the economy, so the economy really needs to grow faster than the debt.
Yes.
The debt is growing at 5% a year, and the economy is growing at 0.1%.
But at least we pay £1 billion a month for foreigners' benefits.
Yes, at least there's that. Yes. So somebody's getting something
helpful
out of this.
Yeah.
Yes.
Manufacturing shrinking fast, this report says.
Step in with the steel, isn't it?
Services are holding level, barely increasing, but it's being wiped out by basically everything. People who actually do stuff, I mean, apart from serve food,
right? They're
going. Right. Public sector's going up quite a lot.
If you work in a supermarket, if you work in a restaurant, there's more productivity or more production there, if you can call it that. But if you're actually making real things that feed you and that you need in your home and that sort of, you can sell to the rest of the world, boink.
So as for working in the restaurant, yes, it is up negligibly. You can just about see it.
Right.
Everything else you can definitely see a decline going down, except for public sector, which is, you can see that.
And the quality of services, the quality of services must be improving dramatically, right?
Oh, you would think, wouldn't you?
Oh, yeah.
Demand and sentiment weak and jobs being cut. I mean, just as a bit of an anecdote, I was speaking to some guys who are still doing VC.
Oh, yeah.
And I was asking them about deal flow and, what prospects they're seeing in the UK. And they said, basically, we don't even bother looking in the UK anymore.
Why would you?
Wow.
Yeah.
Why would you?
Because every time we invest in the UK, it fails, and it normally fails because of something the government has done. And therefore, we just don't waste our time. And these are all British guys who've relocated to, Los Angeles or New York or somewhere like that. But it's just not worth even trying to invest in this country at this point. So they've given up. And it also reminded me of a conversation I had with Will Straw, who was Jack Straw's son, who used to run Labour List and stuff like that a few years ago. And he was saying to me, I don't understand how if a teacher's working in the private sector, they're adding value, but if they're working in the public sector, they're reducing value, or nurse or something like that.
Right.
And I was saying, on the face of it, that's fine, but you've got to look at efficiency. You've got to look further. I mean, you'll find efficiencies in the frontline job, but you
also where the money's coming from.
Well, that as well, yeah. But you've got to look beyond the frontline job itself. You've got to look at the admin, the management, the support, the logistics. All of that would be massively less efficient in a public sector because it simply doesn't need to be.
But it's also like why I pay for a service is to get something out of it. When the government forces me to pay for a service, I have no choice, and I often don't need it. Yeah. Like, I haven't needed to go to the hospital for a little while. So,
and if you do, don't bother me then. Just pay the 50 quid and go to a private GP. It's just so much easier. You get seen and it's done.
So it's a kind of like artificial vampiric pseudo economy that the government has, and so to be like, well, I just don't see the difference. They're both teachers. It's like, okay.
Yeah. And I mean, she's left now, but my mum was a NHS nurse for years and years and years. And I used to get bombarded with stories about massive inefficiencies. I mean, I just to pick a couple off the top of my head. One time, her mouse stopped working for her computer.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
So she wanted to go on Amazon and buy a £10 mouse, and they're like, "No, you can't do that. We got a list supplier system." So she went on that, and it's 60 quid. But okay, so right, fine, we have to do that then, do we? Another thing, they used to keep a box of light bulbs.
Right.
But now when the light bulb goes, you have to pay 80 quid for the man from the company to come out to change the light bulb. You're not allowed to do it yourself. You get told off.
Simply corruption.
Well,
the Middle Eastern in me just says that this is obviously corruption.
The reason that system was put in is because the last Labour government knew that they were really inefficient, but they thought, okay, the private sector is efficient. So what we do is we contract out these services to the private sector. So they went to the private sector and said, so how much can you change a light bulb for? And they said, well, seriously, 80 quid?
Yeah, from government money.
And
it is corruption.
And they were like, okay, yeah, that must work. So that's what they do. Now, back to Brokenomics, but the whole premise of my Brokenomics series is that basically the economy has changed.
Yes.
So the old system pre-internet was we are going to do more with more.
Yeah.
So we're going to open another factory, another showroom, hire more salespeople.
I mean, this sounds like a good idea.
Well, and that's fine.
Yeah, do productive things.
Yeah, but do more with more. And then after the internet, it came all about we're going to do more with less. It's going to be about efficiency and unit cost, and we're going to drive. So we are going to do more, but we're going to achieve it not through more, but efficiency and unit cost and code and all that kind of stuff. And I'm not sure that Labour have got their head around the internet revolution yet.
I believe it.
Give it another 20 years.
Yes. So it makes me not, I'm not entirely confident, therefore, that they're going to get their head around the next tsunami, which is probably going to be significantly bigger, which is AI. I mean, this is just an anecdote I saw, but it makes a point quite well. A partner at one of the largest accounting firms in the world said something to me that should be incredibly concerning for white-collar workers. Paraphrase, I'm convinced AI will be able to do my job within the next couple of years. I used to draft a report and it was 80% there. Yes, there were flaws in it, but it's scary how convincing it is. I really think it's a matter of time.
Well, I'm convinced that AI will be able to do Rachel Reeves's job, because she's crap.
I think most people could.
Yeah.
I think if anybody can
I think you could ask
one
of the
household
shares
budget
to do her job and it'll manage somehow.
Well, I mean, anyone who's balanced any kind of household budget would surely be able to do it.
Yes.
But then they're not going to be committed to the universal doctrine of human rights.
No.
For the entirety of mankind. So anyway, moving on.
But I mean, this is a coming thing. It is going to be a huge. In fact, another quick anecdote. I knew an accountant from the internet days, and he was saying he used to spend all month doing the monthly management reports for his firm that he worked in, and he pestered them relentlessly to get this piece of software, and this was 30 years ago or something. They finally got him the piece of software, and it then took him half an hour to do it, and he just spent the rest of the time basically playing golf. Fair enough. There are efficiencies to be had with doing this stuff. But it brings me on to I don't know if you saw this.
I did see this.
Yeah. So this is
Yes.
well, I won't bother playing it. But basically, what happened is these guys have just graduated, and this guy, perhaps a little bit unwisely, just holds up his laptop and says, "Yeah, I did the whole thing on AI."
God, he looks like a meme, doesn't he?
He does.
He looks like a.
Would you play the video?
Yeah, go on. Let's watch it.
Yeah,
okay,
I find it.
right, fair enough. Wow. This has been remixed a bit. Okay, fine. That's been remixed a bit. Fine. I should have picked a different one, but yeah, he got to keep his degree because.
Well, why does he get to keep his degree?
That's hilarious.
Well, because of this point. A brutally honest conversation with a top-tier academic in charge of examining classics BA. She believes that all but one, i.e. 98.5% of the cohort, used AI in varying degrees of illegality to complete compositions in their final degree submissions.
So I just want to be clear. I didn't use AI at all in my degree.
You should have done.
I know, but
How can you not?
Because the point is not the qualification, right? The point is actually when you do the thing and you sit down and you spend however many hours every day thinking and working and grinding through it, you gain benefits that
I think that's thinking about it wrong. I think you should be using it.
No.
But using it in the right way. Now, I'm not saying to write your stuff forward.
Yeah, I'm not saying you can't use ChatGPT as like a research tool. It's like, where did Plato say?
Okay,
blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, that's exactly
fine.
yes.
It's just like an advanced Google search. But when it comes to that guy, had obviously got it to write his bloody essay for
Yes.
him, right?
Yes.
And that's the part that you need to be doing, because that is actually where you strain your brain muscles. And like any muscle, if you don't repeatedly use it and make it better, it withers.
Yeah.
So you have not personally gained the benefit of actually doing the degree. You've just got a piece of paper, and yet you're still a retard.
What do you think? Should students be using AI?
Absolutely not.
Yeah,
It's
flogged.
I mean, use Google search, use it as Google search, but beyond that, it's just crazy. Yeah. The purpose of it's now just about gaining credentials, and so that devalues the degree itself, that it's just a credential, but it's meant to be a learning journey. You're meant to actually discover something about the world, learn something about the world, in order to actually qualify you for something. This does nothing for you.
So I've got to say, I go completely the other way on this one.
Okay.
I think you absolutely should be using it for several reasons. First, this stuff is completely unbannable. You're not going to be able to ban it. And how even would you?
You could just require written tests.
Yeah.
Okay, my second point is that the degrees should embrace it, but they should just simply change how they test those skills. So obviously, this guy was able to do it because of a heavy reliance on coursework, because it's easier to mark and all the rest of it.
Right.
Fine, have a coursework element, but also have written exams, and I think you should add in verbal presentations as well.
Honestly, if it gets to the point where like 98% of them are doing the coursework via ChatGPT, abandon the coursework.
Yes.
There's no point to it. No, you've learned nothing. You've just handed me an AI-generated script. Pointless. Why am I reading this?
Yeah.
Right, if it didn't come from you, there's no reason for me to even give it the time of day, because why am I reading this?
What am I doing reading Grok?
Yeah, exactly.
It's sort of
pointless.
It's an insult to the teacher.
So it has to be only written tests, and honestly, probably speaking tests.
I would go the verbal presentation, because I'm thinking back to my career. Sometimes I'd hand in a written report, but 90% of the time you're standing there explaining it. So I'd say, encourage them to use AI as a learning tool. Try and do as much learning as you possibly can. But when we want to test you, we're going to sit you down in front of 3 people who really know what they're talking about, and they're going to ask you questions. Like the old naval board.
Well, there's going to be no other way of doing it.
No.
Yeah.
What else can they do?
But
eventually they'll have something in your ear, sort of.
Okay. Well, yeah.
And then you become a machine.
Yeah.
You
cyborg,
and the thing has sort of become one.
But I think AI is a tremendous productivity enhancing tool.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
I think about when I started here at Lotus Eaters in 2022. In a week, I could get through a Brokenomics on a podcast, and I was kept pretty busy in that. Now, yes, I was newer then, and I was learning my craft. But now I can get through a Brokenomics, 2 podcasts, 4 dailies, and a Lads Hour. And yes, there's a bit of learning that came in that, but a big part of it is definitely AI. Because I can do things like, I mean, I use it for every Brokenomics in that, the amount of times I thought to myself, there was a report written by some guy, might have been at Merrill's,
right?
Maybe called Mark. I think he was Australian, and he made a point like this. And if I tried to find that,
it would take forever. And I agree with you. Yeah. Like, as a reference finder, it is really, really useful.
Absolutely.
But you can use it beyond that as well. So, I mean, I do heavily. So I don't get it to write the episode, but what I will do is I will write an outline of all the things I want to cover, the angle I'm coming at. And then I'll put that in, and I'll say, okay, if somebody was going to criticise this, how would they do so?
Right.
And it will throw up things that I hadn't thought of. That's an angle.
That is actually an interesting angle, yeah.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
And other things I can do is, so I used to, like before AI, I'd sit and read 2 decent-sized reports a week on something, but it's a lot of time because they're like 12.
Getting it to summarise things is useful.
I can now go through 10 a week easily because what I do is I put them all in and I say, what are the key points coming out of this and where in the report are they mentioned? And I look through it and go, I'm not interested in that, not interested in that, yeah, I'm interested in that. And so I can just narrow down on stuff so much faster than I ever used to.
You know what I found AI really useful for is finding connections and things. So, for example, I've got loads of philosophy books I've got to read, but I also have to explain how the philosophers dealt with one another. Now, that's actually really difficult to piece together, and it takes a lot of time. But I can actually just ask the AI, right, okay, did David Hume ever send a letter to so-and-so? Did so-and-so ever have a meeting with so-and-so? And it can give you quite a detailed little map of who dealt
You are using it for your...
Well, I'm not using it to write the thing, obviously.
Yeah, but you're using it as a tool.
Yeah, but I'm using it as a reference finder, basically. Find me some information that I need to know, which is fair, and that's fine, but that's not what these kids are doing.
No, but the difference between you and them is that the reason you're doing it is because you can then be put in front of a camera or whatever, a person.
Yeah, and I know what I'm
so you need to be able to argue the case.
But here's the thing. If you get to a point where you aren't a master of your craft yourself, you can never tell when the AI makes a mistake.
Yes. And that is a real issue.
And that's a real problem.
And I've had this a bunch of times as well, where I'm like, ChatGPT, find me where Rousseau said something about the general will or something. And it will come back with a bunch of references. And then I will literally take those references, go to Internet Archive or some, online version of it. And I will look through and I'll see that passage has nothing to do with it. Right. And I'll go back and literally say, why did you make this up? And I actually meant this one. And I'll go check it. And this is actually the correct reference. Because it is just a really advanced probability generator. Yep. And so it will actually make things up.
So when firms are doing this, they typically, first of all, run it on a much increased cycle version rather than just the quick. Because if it spits you out an answer in 5 seconds, it's never any good.
Yeah.
So you can put it on a deep think mode, and also you for serious stuff, you kind of want to run it 3 times, and then you can even get it to check itself against those 3 different versions to see what came out. So you want to be careful with it. But as a speeding up tool for preparing stuff,
I'm not saying it doesn't have uses.
Immense.
It absolutely does have uses.
So, I think, degrees should be embracing it. They should just be fundamentally changing how they test. And I think it should be verbal presentations. I think that's the way to go, because that's what you actually use in the real world workplace. So, but, the point is, as this accountant, a couple of, that guy there is starting to figure out, AI is going to be an enormous deflationary shock. Because you can do so much more with so much less. So the need for the private sector to get more efficient at precisely the same time is getting hammered by extra taxes.
Yes.
And then the public sector has no need to become more efficient because it gets more money extracted from the private sector, which is getting it from both ends.
Yes.
You can see how this clearly is not going to work. This is going to be a disaster.
And do you think Ms. Reeves understands this?
I would suggest not, actually.
So just, I'm not an economist, and I'm also retarded. So basically, what this means is that far more will be done by far fewer people in the private sector, putting millions of people out of work, but also without a corresponding rise in new industries, and therefore there's just going to be nowhere for these people to go. Is that correct?
Well, so how it should work is people So people either embrace it fast and they become significantly more efficient at what they're doing, and they do more, in which case they're kept. Because if you're a firm, if you're now getting a higher return on capital, well, you're just going to do more of it. So actually, you should employ more people as long as they are individually more efficient, which is why I'm saying everybody should really learn this stuff very fast, and students should be learning it. And I'm trying to encourage my children to learn it. You should do that. It's the people who resist against it, they're going to have to end up in the public sector because there's going to be no obligation to do any of this stuff. But yeah, in terms of, I mean, one of you asked, is Rachel Reeves competent? I've not had a competent...
That wasn't exactly the question, but yeah.
I've not had a competent chancellor in my lifetime. In my adult lifetime. So when I was a kid, I mean, so first of all, the best chancellor was probably Gladstone.
Going back a few there.
Yeah. But after that, you got Geoffrey Howe and Nigel Lawson through my childhood. Those guys were competent. And some people try and argue that Gordon Brown was. He was for the first 4 years because when he was following Ken Clarke's plan, who was also reasonably good. But I mean, after that, after I turned 18, I've not seen a competent chancellor.
There's the issue about selling the gold, but yes.
And, clearly, Rachel from accounts, she doesn't understand the job if she was doing this 20 years ago, before the internet revolution. She's struggling against that. She's certainly not going to get what's coming next. And it's not just AI. I'll also mention this angle of it. Tesla have now launched their driverless cars. Let's play this, but let's turn that sound off.
Okay, if I record?
I tell you what, man, the driverless cars, it's not that they freak me out, and I'm not against them. It's just that there's something weird about it not being controlled by a human, right?
Yes.
To not have a driver in the driver's seat is weird.
Yes.
I mean, I'm absolutely convinced that in 20 or 30 years' time, it will just be illegal to drive cars, right?
Yes.
All cars will be self-driven because the numbers will be in. And what the numbers will show is that it's literally going to be like 1,000 times more dangerous to have a human behind the wheel than it is to have AI behind the wheel.
Yeah.
Right? The number of casualties caused on roads by AI will be in the double digits probably, and the number from humans is probably in the thousands or tens of thousands. Right? So they're going to literally be like, you're not allowed to drive. If you want to drive, you can go to a special racetrack sort of thing where you drive a car. Right?
Well, when we first had lifts, you had a man with a dial that manually made it go up and down.
Yeah.
And it freaked people out when they went in there was just buttons.
And I'm sure...
But would you get in a lift where there's a man who could just do that and chop you in half? I mean, you wouldn't.
Well, I'm not worried about him chopping me in half, but it'd be weird, right? It'd be and I'm sure for our kids or our kids' kids, they can be like, "What? You had people in the cars driving the cars?
Yeah.
That sounds unsafe."
Yes.
It was. I mean,
So back to my point about this being a deflationary shock. Being a driver is the largest profession worldwide for unskilled men.
I bet. Yeah.
Biggest employer for unskilled men, right? And then this is coming now. Even if you ship a guy in across the southern border from Guatemala, and he lives in a flat with 3 other Guatemalans, he still can't be as cheap as this because he eats and he sleeps, and this is code, and it can drive 22 hours a day, a couple of hours for charging.
And also this is basically a one-time investment with very minimal upkeep costs, right? And this can run 24 hours a day.
Well, 22, you need a couple of hours of charging, but yeah.
But
he doesn't, apart from that, it doesn't sleep, and it can do it every single day. He never takes a day off, never gets a bereavement, never gets ill.
So basically, this is also going to put an end to grooming gangs.
Well, I think we still import them. They just won't be doing the job.
The taxi industry is key to the.
Yes, it was a key part of it, wasn't it?
So yeah, Elon Musk has saved those kids indirectly.
Yeah,
good for him.
So as if the internet wasn't big enough, we've got robotics and AI coming, and our tax system is just fundamentally incapable of solving this problem.
God, it is remarkable how good this is.
Yeah. Absolutely incredible.
Now, genuinely, how to run tax and spend in a Western economy today, it is a genuinely difficult problem. And I'm not sitting here claiming that I've got the perfect solution.
Yeah.
All I'm saying is, at least I understand what the problem is. And I have absolutely no confidence that she has figured out the internet yet.
No.
Let alone what's about to hit.
Yep.
So, I'd like to give you, somebody in the chat, was it Rue the Day? I was asking if I could give a grey pea, or if I could give at least some half.
Sure, Labour won't be in power forever.
Well, yeah. Or you know, while you're getting poor, all the people you hate will be getting poor as well. I mean, there's that. I mean, I'm afraid that's all I've got for you, right?
Wow.
If you would like to watch the full uncut version that is also uncensored, head on over to lotuseaters.com to find out more.